محدثنا التالي على المنصة هو السيد ماجد المري، مهندس إطفاء في شركة أرامكو السعودية. ماجد حاصل على درجة البكالوريوس في هندسة الإطفاء ودرجة الماجستير في هندسة الإطفاء والانفجارات. يعمل في قسم الوقاية من الحريق في شركة أرامكو منذ 13 عاماً. تشمل مهام عمله مكافحة الحرائق وهندسة الإطفاء وتوحيد معايير المواد. يتمتع السيد ماجد بخبرة واسعة في انفجارات الأبخرة السحابية سريعة الاشتعال وبرمجية محاكاة ديناميكية الحرائق ومكافحة الحرائق الصناعية. ماجد مهندس محترف مسجل لدى الهيئة السعودية للمهندسين، وأخصائي معتمد في الحماية من الحريق، وعضو في جمعية مهندسي الإطفاء في المملكة المتحدة. والآن فليتفضل السيد ماجد ليحدثنا حول المعايير الدولية للسلامة من الحريق وتطبيقاتها على شركات النفط والغاز في المنطقة. فليتفضل.
Assalamu alaikum and مساكم الله بالخير جميعا. Good afternoon everybody. My name is Majid. Wonderful introduction by my colleagues. I work for the Saudi oil company, Saudi Aramco, Fire Protection Department. I'm a fire and explosions engineer. We provide technical support to fire operations. My topic today is an extension of the topics that preceded me. In particular, the first presentation by Dr. Sebastian. And my topic is International Fire Safety Standards and Certifications. Suitability to oil and gas companies in the Arabian Gulf region. However, the same principles, the same concerns, the same issues are faced by also civil applications. Before I start, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for the beautiful reception by the government of Dubai, as represented by the Ministry of Interior, the Directorate General of Civil Defense Dubai, for their usual beautiful hosting. It's always a pleasure being here. The aim of my presentation is to provide you with a brief overview on the suitability of international fire safety standards and certifications, how they apply their impact and performance requirements to this region. To put it in a nutshell, how the international standards and requirements apply to us here in the Middle East, or in particular in the Gulf region. On a technometer, I like to use this. My presentation falls more within the administration rather than fully technical or fully strategic. It's going to be a brief presentation, and we will not be going into deep technicalities. The outline of the presentation, a few bus stops, I like to refer to them. A couple of definitions and overview, main challenges, fundamental issues, failure examples, recommendations, then a Q&A if time allows. A disclaimer, they don't make us say this, but I like to say it, is that we respect all legitimate and official organizations. Any reference I may make, even by accident, to any organization, listings, approvals, certifications, does not intend to specify any particular organization. Opinions conveyed in this presentation are not necessarily 100% identical of that of Saudi Aramco's. Definitions. First of all, standards. These definitions, I made them just in a nutshell. A standard is a minimum acceptable attributes, a set of minimum acceptable attributes or features to the authority having jurisdiction, AHJ. AHJ, authority having jurisdiction, which is the organization responsible for compliance and enforcement. Could be government, could be company. For us in Saudi Aramco, it's us, so it depends on the organization of the region. Listing and approval. I use them in this presentation as equivalent words, while in reality they're actually different words. To simply refer to a system or a solution that meets defined set of design and performance requirements. Third-party certification, which is the general or the specific topic for our whole event today, is independent confirmation of promised attributes. And this is extremely important. The word here is independent. I'll dwell on this in a couple of moments. We need to verify marketing claims. Sales can promise you the moon, but when it comes to actual application in real life, then things can be different. Okay, so an overview, and my presentation flew too quickly. Third-party approvals are not unique to fire and safety industry. So third-party listings or approvals are not only applicable to fire safety. You'll find them in food industry, cars, toys, education, just anything. Think of anything, and they were actually started there before our industry. Oil and gas companies are some among the richest or the most profitable companies in the world. If we want, we can build the best testing labs in the world. However, this will defeat the main purpose of third-party testing. Third-party certifications are crucial for verification, and this is an extremely important point. In-house verification, which is something common, can be lenient, because if I evaluate myself, or my cousin, or someone who's near me, I may be lenient. However, when I bring someone from an outside organization to evaluate my work, then this could be a bit more independent and a bit more neutral point of reference. Main challenges we have in the region here. MENA and GCC, Middle East, North Africa, and the Gulf countries are relatively new in industry. It's not very common to find companies here older than 100 years old. This made us adopt standards from the EU and North America, not only US, and certifications. Actually, if you remember our presentations since the morning until now, there was huge reference to North America, American, and European standards. It's as if these are the only sources of standards and certifications, with all due respect, of course. US or North American and EU standards and certifications are really great. Many of them I would rate 5, 6, 7 stars even. However, that doesn't necessarily mean 100% fit for the region here. Exponential development, alhamdulillah, in the region of industry and businesses, just look at Dubai as a super example, the development is really at the speed of light. Showed us the shortcoming of the issue in adopting standards that were not developed here. So we imported standards from Europe and North America, and as we expanded in our business here in the Gulf region, we started seeing that what we imported is not 100% fit for our area. Could be 99%, by the way, don't get me wrong, but not 100%. Organizations that over-specify seem to perform the best. However, this has the downside of being less economic. I like to refer to the American Petroleum Institute, API, an organization, and this one I'm mentioning by name because it's more of a compliment, not a criticism. They tend to specify very stringent requirements in process areas on oil and gas. So you seem or you tend to get very high performance from such organizations. And as you can see, like I said in the beginning, everything I say here still applies to civil buildings. Yani, if it applies to a refinery in Saudi Aramco pumping 4 or 5 million barrels a day, so much of the principles will apply to Burj Khalifa or other buildings because it's all in the fire and safety industry. My analysis leads to 2 issues. Why things that we imported from the US or North America, Europe, and the rest of the world to this region, why they don't fit 100% all the time. We have environmental and cultural attributes. Environmental, temperature. Temperature, everyone knows that temperatures here in the Middle East or in the Gulf region specifically can be extreme. And I know someone could tell me, yeah, in the Gulf of Galveston, for example, in Texas, in Australia, and other hot places in the world, it reaches actually 40s, maybe touches even close to 50s. Yes, I would agree, it does. However, by the time the sun sets, everything cools down very quickly. Here in this region, mashallah, no. It could be midnight and you go out and you feel what we call habu here, and it's still very hot. You can see 40s, above 40s in the middle of the night. So it's different. Dust, alhamdulillah, and mashallah, we have plenty of this. Humidity, extreme humidity. Water service, this is a very critical thing, by the way. If you work in fire certification, like our friends in the safety lab here, the water we have in the Arabian Gulf is special. Because the Arabian Gulf, there are so many Gulfs in the world, but the Arabian Gulf is slightly shallow. Evaporation process is extremely high, which makes water extremely hot, very salty, in other words. Fuel specifications. It's a fuel-rich region, alhamdulillah. And the way we oxygenate fuels without going technical or super technical is a bit still very severe. We use MTBE, which is methyl tert butyl ether, a very harsh chemical that's still commonly used in the Middle East and Asia. In the north of America and Europe, this is not common. They oxygenate their fuels by use of alcohols, a very environmentally friendly process, but again, applicable to their regions. And cultural. Now, I'm going to be careful when I say cultural here, and I'm not going to dwell too much in details here. Importance of maintenance might not be obvious to everyone across the board. This could be influenced by environmental metrics. It's easy if I'm sitting in, let's say, for example, in Germany, I can send a group of technicians to go and check hydrants or monitors in a plant. But in the Middle East or here in the Gulf region, if I send 3 or 4 technicians in the middle of June, July, August to inspect 300 or 200 hydrants or fixed systems, then you would expect this to be slightly, actually seriously challenging on their physique. So this may lead sometimes to what they call the third gear inspection, which is you simply just pass by equipment and say that it exists, and you take off. Okay, so we'll review 5 failure topics. A brief review, very quick review. Firefighting foams, hydrants and monitors, fire water valves, smoke alarms, and fire pumps. Okay, so the first one, firefighting foams. For us, this is one of the most important resources ever. As you can imagine, oil and gas companies or industrial applications, this is really important. Water service. Foams, most firefighting foams are made in North American factories and European factories. Guess what? The fuel they use and the temperatures they see there are not like here. Storage conditions. If you check listing and approval requirements, they don't actually account for our conditions here in the Middle East. And if you think they do, then you need to revise. Application temperature. Application temperatures that we use in the Middle East or the Gulf region are extreme. To most manufacturers, it's actually out of their hands or technical abilities. Fuel specifications, like we said, the use of MTBE is an extremely challenging attribute. Application rates. Application rates you see in popular standards without being specific to any specific organization are much lower than what you need in reality here in the Gulf region. If you try fighting fires with standard requirements, you will find that you are challenged, especially if it's a large fire. This brings the number, as you can see there, 9%. The 9% is the pass rate of all international foams that we test in Saudi Aramco. So we test firefighting foams. These are the best in the world. Listed, approved, used by law enforcement, armed forces in the world. But when we test them in Saudi Aramco, then you get severe failures. So this is why I keep referring that what might work in Texas, for example, or Orlando, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work here in Dubai. Next thing, fire hydrants and monitors. We have plenty of them, and you see these even in civil applications. Extreme temperatures here. Believe it or not, a hydrant sitting in the desert of Sheba or somewhere isolated can reach up to 70, 80 degrees Celsius. Now, listing requirements cannot go that high. And unfortunately, we still require listing and approvals. Water service. Our water here is extremely harsh. If you notice, so many refineries and industrial facilities are built on seashores, much like, it's a common practice. Some plants use raw water from the sea. So this also introduces severe challenge. Most standards that you can see will not account for this. Corrosive environments. Like we said, it's dusty, it's humid, and if you are in a refinery or in a process area, vapors that spread in facilities can actually be extremely corrosive to the most advanced metals in the world, by the way. And as you can see, failures like this up there and down here are extremely scary and unfortunately common. By the way, all equipment up and down are actually listed, approved, and meet the most stringent requirements in the globe. Yet failures are severe due to very basic reasons. Metallurgical requirements. Some standards and listing classes actually go that extra step. They even tell you what to use and what not to use to get listed and approved. And the problem, they don't come from this region, so you're importing something from outside, and they're telling you how to do something, but they're not from here, so it's a fitting issue. Next one, fire water valves. This is a very serious resource for us in firefighting. Again, this is the same thing that applies in civil applications and industrial. Issues with extreme temperatures, water service. When I say water service, I mean the water specifications. Being extremely salty, mistreated, carrying sand, carrying all kind of, aquatic life forms. Corrosive environments, the same thing. As you can see, problems or issues are carried over, which is good. So there is a trend that you can trace. Product range. So many factories in the world, and even if you go to the oldest, the biggest, the most developed, you come ask them for a 50-inch or a 60-inch valve, you will not find it listed or approved. So you're going to have to go through the pain. Again, it's uncommon in their regions, so this puts you squeezes you in a corner. Smoke alarms, another extremely area of annoyance or problems for us. Humidity, dust, maintenance requirements, design issues. Nice. Design issues. So humidity here is extremely high. Dust, mashallah, like I said, every week you will get a wave of dust. Maintenance requirements. Most of these equipment are listed and approved. But you can be really annoyed with the alarms, with the nuisance, alarms, and it's not all actual real reportings. If you disassemble them, and this is something we do back home, Saudi Aramco, you will find that many of them were not prepared or designed to work here. It's a super dusty environment. You clean something today, in 1 month it can be dusty again. Combine that with a bit of humidity, and mashallah, you get a mix that can fail listed equipment. Again, since these products were developed in easier environments, it's easy to make them fail here. Maintenance requirements apply to other areas rather than here. Design issues. And even incense, Yeah, incense. What we call here oud, or bukhur, can actually still trigger so many alarms. Same thing applies to fire pumps. Our requirements are much bigger than what the market offers as listed or approved. Metallurgic requirements. So a listing lab or an approval lab will go and tell you you're only allowed to use ductile iron, for example. They will tell you exactly what to use, but when you install what they tell you to use, it fails. And the problem is that, by the way, it doesn't fail in a short time, so it could take a few months, it could take a few years. But when a fire safety equipment fails, that could actually lead to a disaster. Product range, again, flows of most pumps are really small, at least to us in Aramco. Even the biggest offerings are still baby-sized. So what we did, one thing we do actually back in Aramco is develop our own standards. Something that we don't like to do because we are not a testing lab, but sometimes we take that extra step to just account for our business. The failure and suitability is not only in the manufacturing, but again, in the standards or listing approval requirements. Again, if you're familiar with standards and listing approvals classes, they actually tell you how to manufacture goods, how to manufacture systems. And again, this is 100% related to the failure rates that you see in equipment. Recommendations, first thing, we can do nothing and continue what we're doing now, and alhamdulillah, whatever fails, we replace. Second option, US and EU norms, certifications, they could be adjusted to account for us here in the GCC. And all I can tell you is good luck if you want to try this. I sit on the committee of one of the most applicable standards in North America, and influencing our requirements as the Gulf companies is extremely difficult, because what we need is considered extremely difficult for most, so you might find yourself a little bit estranged. Develop our own set of standards, certifications, and approvals. And I think this puts the emphasis on the Emirati Safety Lab, or Emirates Safety Lab, and gives them a beautiful, I guess, path to hopefully and inshallah succeed in developing something that could work for the region. And not only bring products and test them to UL and FM, no, actually develop our own standards. And believe me, something that works in Dubai or Emirates, inshallah, will work in Saudi Arabia. And again, no need to reinvent the wheel. If you're going to develop a standard or certification listing requirement for, let's say, a smoke management system, a hydrant, a firefighting pump, you don't need to actually start it from scratch. You can adopt some of the international standards and work with them, not to ignore the experience that has been built for many years by other organizations. And by the way, this brings me to the point that we're extremely excited and keeping a very close eye on the Emirates Safety Lab. Wishing you all the best, inshallah. I think in this country, mashallah, you are enabled and empowered to succeed in anything you start, so no excuses there. Thank you so much, and I'll take questions at the end of my presentation. Maybe this slide should have been before. I'd like to conclude with a quotation from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, saying that the race to excellence has no finish line. Being in this beautiful place gives you, I think, ability to reach horizons unheard of in other places, and would like to work hand in hand with you guys, and that would be our pleasure. This concludes my presentation. These are my contact details, and I'd be happy to be reached for anyone who is interested. Thank you so much.